Have you ever felt like if you don't move faster, work harder, figure things out now, you are gonna fall behind? Or maybe you feel like if you stop hustling, everything is just gonna fall apart. So you just keep on rushing. You rush through your life, you rush through progress, you rush to become better, you rush your healing. But what if all that rushing is actually slowing you down? Today, I'm bringing to you yet another ancient Chinese folktale that warns you about the consequences of rushing and hustling against the natural rhythm of things. And the folktale's name is 拔苗助长. I want to start off by saying that we live in a culture of urgency. In fact, I've written about the consequences of living in an urgency in my very latest newsletter. And if you are not subscribed to my weekly newsletter already, you can definitely go and check out the past archives of the articles that I have released on my website. And you can find the link to those articles in the link below the video. And go and subscribe though. Back to the topic of rushing. As a consulting dietitian, which is what I do in my day job, it is my profession, I see all kinds of people from different backgrounds, from different socioeconomic statuses, different ages, different cultures. Seeing hundreds of different people a year really gives you a lot of perspective. And I started seeing patterns at some point. So it doesn't matter their age, doesn't matter where they're from and what they do, and whether they're poor or they're rich. A lot of my clients, I would even say most of my clients, are either burned out, stressed out, exhausted from hustling in their lives, taking on way too many responsibilities for what they physically can handle, and oftentimes sleep deprived, anxious, restless. Despite all of that, a lot of them just cannot stop hustling. And I'm not just talking about, people who need the money, like they're doing 2 to 3 jobs at a time. No, a lot of the times the people who can't stop hustling are actually those really intelligent, high-achieving, high-earning individuals. And funny thing is, a lot of them are also women. Although I have to admit, I understand that pattern quite well. As someone who is very ambitious and also quite, I would say, high-achieving, I definitely at some point fell into those cycles of taking up too many responsibilities, really driving myself crazy with the things that I was trying to do all at once, and it really did no good to my own sense of well-being. Thankfully though, that period of time did not last very long, because I think naturally I just was able to recognize early on that I am no workaholic. I cannot be like them workaholics. I don't have the physical or the emotional capacity to be a workaholic. Like, it was causing me sleep struggles, digestive issues, and all those kind of crazy things, and I really didn't want any of those. But despite having already physically slowed down my routine and put less things on my plate, I still can't help but feeling that sense of stress and despair that things were not going fast enough for me. At the time, I was trying to become a more competent dietitian with a higher level of communication skills because I was dealing with teenagers, their parents, with complex psychosocial situations. I was trying to help these people, and you really do need to have some good level of communication skills to manage different kinds of complex dynamics between people, and in order to convey the messages, to give the recommendations in a way that people want to listen. So it's a lot of things to consider. It's not just simple nutrition advice. It's a lot of effective communication and being able to manage the atmosphere. And young Crystal felt like she was not doing enough. Young Crystal felt like she was not progressing fast enough. And yet you have to know that at the time, I was also trying to do all of that in my third language, French. I was not that fluent in French at that point, so I was also trying to improve my French, and I certainly felt like I was not improving fast enough. Listen, if you ever learned a new language before, you know that at some point you reach a plateau level where any improvements just seemed impossible no matter how hard you try. You just felt like you were not improving, right? And obviously right now I'm fully fluent, but at the time I was like, was any of my effort even working? At the time it felt slow. At the time it felt like I was stalling, and I was certainly quite anxious about the whole thing, given my own experience. And by talking also to the people around me, talking with my clients, I noticed something interesting. Generally speaking, the reason why people don't slow down is not because they don't want rest. It's not because they don't want to slow down. You really ask yourself, you know that you like a break. You know that you like to chill. But the reason why people cannot slow down, and the reason why I was not able to slow down my mind and my worries about not going fast enough, is because of this guilt. Guilt of not performing at top speed, guilt of not doing enough, and if you dig even deeper, you might even find an even more insidious, deep-seated guilt of what if I'm not enough? Now this gets very existential. So yeah, now that we live in an era of high convenience, high speed, with AI tools being at our fingertips, facilitating just about anything that you want to do, there is an even stronger, I find, expectation for things to be more productive, more efficient. So with all of that cultural context in place, I find that the sense of guilt for not doing enough will only worsen unless you become aware of it, of course. But we're going faster and going at higher speeds at what cost? Is faster really better? To answer that question, this is when I bring to you the Chinese folktale / expression of the day, 拔苗助长. If you're not familiar with the channel, on Chinese Inside Out, I try to bring to you not only things from Chinese culture, but also the wisdom, the gems found in Chinese practices and Chinese language so that they become something useful in your daily life. And hopefully this is also my way of inspiring you to think differently. Now, the story of 拔苗助长 is actually quite old. 拔苗助长 is a folktale that was written in the Warring States era in Chinese history. In Chinese, we call it 战国时期. It stemmed from about 2,300 years ago. Alright, so it's quite old. The literal meaning of 拔苗助长 means pulling seedlings up to help them grow. 拔 means to pull, 苗 means seedling or sprouts, 助 means to help, 长 means to grow. So now, let me tell you the story of the farmer who literally pulled his crops up in order to help them grow. Once upon a time, there was a farmer who cared greatly for his crops. He planted the seeds carefully, he watered them diligently, and he inspected the fields every single day. To his great disappointment, the seedlings seemed to be growing way too slowly. Every time he passed by to inspect the field, his worry continued to grow. Why are they still so short? He thought. What if they never grow tall enough? And one day, the farmer had a brilliant idea. Since the crops are not growing fast enough, let me help them out. So he went into the field one morning and started pulling each and every one of them up just a little bit. He worked tirelessly from morning until night, and by nighttime, all the crops appeared taller than before. That night, the farmer returned home and announced proudly to his family, "Today I helped the crops grow faster." His son was quite confused, like, how the heck do you help your crops grow faster? So he went into the field early the next morning to see for himself. And guess what? He was shocked to see that all the crops were dead. The seedlings all wilted because their roots were damaged by the act of tugging. And so, just like that, the entire field of crops were ruined. So what's the lesson here? Well, you see, the farmer had really good intentions. He really did want to help the crops grow better and grow faster. But his actions were actually driven by anxiety and fear. They were not driven by a deep attunement to the actual needs of the crops. So in a way, his helping was actually an interference to the natural process of growth. In a way, you can also say that one of the lessons is that even if you have good intentions, if you are not taking actions that are meaningful, you can actually stall or even ruin the process. It's a great story because I find a lot of parallels between the farmer in the story and a lot of the people that I know personally in my life. We live in a hustle culture. Hustle culture tells you to decide faster, move sooner, execute more, and get your acts together. Don't fall behind. I mean, saying those words just make my anxiety go up. And again, I really get it. It's not something that I'm just gonna say, oh, that's what other people are doing, I honestly at some point really did buy into the ideology of urgency. I really did buy into that ideology of doing more is better. Doing less means I'm less productive, means I'm lazy. But it's not true. It is not true at all. Some very simple examples against the idea of urgency would be, well, if you hurt your body, if you have an injury, your body's going to take time to heal. You cannot rush healing an injury. If you go through a heartbreak, you're not going to be able to rush through the process of grief and of sadness and then getting better again. And you certainly cannot rush the process of learning and gaining any skill, any capacities. All of those things take time. And I'm very happy to say that over the years, I was able to really recognize my own nature of being a slow-moving person. I've never been a very fast-paced person. I like to do my things slowly. I like to get to know people slowly. And I certainly feel better about myself, about my life. And I feel happier when I get to do everything slowly, right? Everything and one thing at a time. I don't like to multitask too much. It makes me unable to actually enjoy the process. And actually now more than ever, I need to respect my own slow pace even more ever since I started my YouTube creator journey, because obviously I did my research before jumping into the whole creator world. I definitely am aware of the fact that YouTube tends to promote people who are producing videos on a very regular basis, like preferably once a week, twice a week, 3 times a week. YouTube really does favor the creators who are like that, and I thought I had to be like that. I mean, the thought crossed my mind, but thankfully I did not fall into that trap, because for me, it really is more about producing quality substance over speed. I want to be able to bring out the best quality work that I am able to produce at the time. Like the whole thing about producing 1 or 2 videos a day, like it's just not gonna work for me right now. Doesn't work for my lifestyle, doesn't work for my work schedule, doesn't work for my level of energy. I simply don't have the time and the energy to be that regular. And also, I need a lot of time to sit with different ideas. I need time during the week for creative inspirations to come up. And I also need time to structure my thoughts, put them into words, write my scripts, and then being able to come up with a creative way to deliver these to you. This way, the contents you are watching and reading from me right now are produced from a relaxed, steady state of mind. It came from a state of me being in flow, not in stress. There's a great quote by a creator / artist / podcaster that I really respect. His name is Rainier Wild, and the quote is, "When you're not creating, you are still a creator." That really, really reassures me quite a bit, because I do agree with it. As a creative person, as anyone who's creating something meaningful of their own in the world, we often feel the internalized pressure to always be creating, always be putting out contents, always be pushing our ideas. But creativity has its own rhythm, has its own ebb and flow, and has its own seasons, even within the same week. I realized that it is better to respect the natural cycle of creativity rather than pushing things out and draining myself in the process. So how can you integrate the lesson of 拔苗助长 into your own life? In other words, how can you slow yourself down consciously and stop rushing? Now, I am speaking specifically to those of you who are ambitious, high-achieving, and hard-working. Friends, I get you. I get the temptation for constant hustling and doing things and producing and all of that. But for your own sanity and health and well-being, I really do urge you to see rest, stillness, and slowing down in a different light. Stillness is recalibration. It is recalibration for your body, it's recalibration for your creativity, and rest is really a sacred grounding for your ambitions. You want to be able to slow down to really see where you're going from time to time. Because being busy all the time really doesn't mean that you're doing the right things. Because when we are constantly in the hamster wheel that we have created for ourselves, we don't realize that maybe some of our busyness and some of our actions are not so meaningful in achieving the goals that we're looking to achieve. But the catch is, slowing down, taking a break, taking a rest is actually not as simple as you may think. Slowing down, resting, being able to ground yourself in stillness actually requires you to have a higher level of tolerance for uncertainty. because now you are intentionally letting the process unfold instead of trying to control the timing. Now that is very, very deep. I really want to, I think I really just wanted to say that the timing of things, a lot of the times, even most of the time, we can't really control. So in a way, you also need to understand what is within your control, what is outside of your control. So I'm going to end with this question. If you are working towards something right now, if you are trying to achieve something right now, look at the actions you're taking. Which actions are driven by anxiety and fear, and which actions are actually meaningful actions moving you towards your goal in a sustainable way. Because some growth requires their own rhythm. Timing is not something that you must conquer and dominate and exceed. Timing is something that we must all learn to trust and respect. Alright friends, if this video resonated with you, definitely subscribe to this channel. I have more good stuff prepared for you, and they're going to be released very soon. And if you want to hear more from me, I write my own newsletters on a weekly basis. The newsletters are released every single Sunday, where I write about the gems, the wisdom hidden in Chinese language, like the folktale that I'm presenting to you today. So go check out the link to the newsletter sign up page in the description below this video. Until next time,